I'm pleased to recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Stubbe, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for bringing this bill before the committee. It's a much-needed issue in my district and all the disasters that we've had across the country, and I'm honored that members like Mr. Panetta have joined as co-sponsors because of the disasters in California and we've seen all across the country. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to bring it before the committee today. H.R. 5863, the Federal Disaster Tax Relief Act of 2023, we have the opportunity today to deliver real results for millions of Americans across Florida and the rest of our country. On September 28, 2022, Southwest Florida experienced Hurricane Ian, one of the most devastating hurricanes to ever hit my state, killing nearly 150 people. NOAA ranks Hurricane Ian as the third most costly hurricane in U.S. history and the costliest in Florida, causing over $112 billion in damages. A little over a month ago, we marked the first anniversary of this devastating storm. Through no fault of their own, Floridians and many other Americans in Southwest U.S. continue on an expensive road to recover following Hurricane Ian. Over the past year, we've delivered several substantial wins for Floridians, but there is a lot more that needs to be done. The most recurring and pressing issue I hear about in my district is that the Suncoast is still waiting for Congress to do its job. 1 year after the landfall of Hurricane Ian, Congress has yet to provide much-needed tax relief or disaster relief for those impacted financially by Hurricane Ian. Disaster relief through changes to tax policy has been a very common congressional response to disasters. We have passed disaster-related tax relief on 8 separate occasions, going back to 2002. This is a common-sense bill that provides needed tax relief for disaster victims. I've received thousands of letters, calls, and pleas for help from people in my district who have incurred tens of thousands of dollars in recovery expenses and are having a hard time getting ahead. This bill merely continues long-standing congressional practices related to disaster relief and would provide much-needed relief for my district. I've had the opportunity to travel in my district as of late, and I would conservatively estimate that about 25% of my district still has tarps on their roofs. I had the opportunity to fly with mosquito control in Lee County a couple months ago, and there are still homes that are gone from their foundations where people are living in RVs. It's a long road ahead, and it's been over a year, so this is much needed help for these people. This bipartisan bill requires that disasters like Hurricane Ian should be treated as a qualified disaster event for purposes of determining the tax treatment of certain disaster-related personal casualty losses. My bipartisan legislation would allow Americans who were subjected to damage from federally declared disasters to claim such losses without itemizing such deductions. Moreover, such losses would not have to exceed 10% of the claimant's adjusted gross income to qualify. This is language that was adopted from the Taxpayer Certainty and Disaster Tax Relief Act of 2020. Section 2 of my bill takes the Taxpayer Certainty and Disaster Tax Relief Act and extends the deadline of qualified disaster area from 60 days after the enactment of that act to major disasters occurring 60 days after the enactment of this bill before us here today. So it's not just Hurricane Ian victims who will benefit from this deduction. It's the millions of Americans around the country who, through no fault of their own, were victims of federally declared disasters. Wildfires in California, fires in Maui, the train derailment in Ohio. Sections 3 and 4 of the bills also include bipartisan disaster priorities for victims of wildfires and chemical spills that have hurt millions of Americans over the past several years. For Floridians, we know that the recovery from Hurricane Ian is far from over. Just one of the counties in my district is still owed nearly $100 million from the storm last year. Despite experiencing numerous hurricanes yearly, Floridians are resilient. I've been working tirelessly on disaster relief legislation and will continue to do whatever is within my power as a member of Congress, as long as it takes for Floridians to recover from the various storms that has decimated our communities. I'm pleased that this bill also includes disaster relief priorities for other members of this committee whose districts and states have also suffered, and I'm confident that this legislation will garner strong bipartisan support from my colleagues of this committee. The Federal Disaster Tax Relief Act of 2023 is expansive to cover numerous natural disasters that have occurred, not pick and choose, but between just my district and another district. This is a bill that should pass out of this House with overwhelming bipartisan support. Disaster relief is not a Democrat problem or a Republican problem. The constituents of my district and the districts of many of you represent are in need of help, and today the Ways and Means Committee should have the courage to do the right thing and pass a bill that provides real relief to Americans from every corner of this great nation. Thank you for the opportunity to present this bill.
Thank you. I now recognize the ranking